past 10 years, everything paranormal has captured the attention of many people, invaded TV, radio, the books we read, and even in the news. And the popularity seems to keep growing. No longer kept hidden and talked about in hushed voices. Now people are talking around the proverbial water cooler with incidents that happened years ago or just yesterday. Seems many are curious and anxious to tell stories about their own brush with the supernatural. My name is Jackie Meador. I'm Director of Central California Paranormal Investigators, and this is my co-host, sensitive healer and Reiki Master of Casa del Curandero and partner, Krista Erickson.
Together we are going to be talking about things that go bump in the night and even during the day. We are going to take you to places that some say are haunted, meet those who hunt for ghosts, venture into the wilderness in search of Bigfoot, watch the skies for UFOs, discover metaphysical mysteries, and investigate urban legends. Those who are on a journey and committed to researching all manner of the paranormal. We hope you enjoy our special guests and discussions on various paranormal topics. You are watching Paranormal Journeys.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us. We have an interesting show planned for you all, one I hope will stir your curiosity and put a little shiver down your spine as we venture into urban legends and myths. Personally, I've always had a fascination for legends and how they start, so that's why I'm really excited about our guest, because he is going to tell us all about 3 of the most popular legends here in the Valley. A native Fresnan, he graduated from Fresno State and worked as an educator for the same school system he grew up in. He's also been on a fascinating journey that started when he was a little boy listening to tales of ghosts, monsters, urban legends, and myths from his mother and grandmother. Today, he researches and investigates those tales, taking him all over the valley to track down the facts behind the legends. Please welcome our guest, founder of Your Urban Legends, Reyes Hernandez. Hey, Reyes, how are you doing?
Hello.
Hi, so nice to have
Nice
you
to meet
here.
you.
I get a hug.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Have a seat.
That's so nice of you.
Well, welcome. And thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
My pleasure.
All right, so first of all, let's start right off and tell everyone who you are. What do you do?
Okay, well, my name is Reyes Hernandez, and I'm an educator, as Jackie said. I work for Fresno Unified School District, but in my part-time, I am a researcher of urban legends. That's one of the things that sort of moves me, you know. I enjoy researching them, and obviously, you know, the validity of another urban legend, I'm getting that now, of an urban legend is a little tough to prove sometimes. However, what is easy to prove is that there are many types of urban legends, and you know, in that variety is where all my interest comes, because, you know, you get to find out things that you never knew before. And so that's what I'm doing right now, and I've got a Facebook page.
And you go actually out. I mean, I know you were at the Coalinga Museum researching Murrieta, and then you, where else have you gone over the valley to do research?
Well, I went to Sanger to research the La Llorona urban legend, and I've gone down Fresno Chinatown to try to research some of the tunnels. Those are the 3 most recent excursions, I guess you could call them. However, you know, I do intend to make this, you know, more of an emphasis, you know, and going around to the different parts of the valley. That interests me greatly, because I think there's a lot of stories out there.
Absolutely.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. Yeah. And you have some people that work with you, or?
Actually, there's a number of people that I use as assistants. You know, they're a lot of them are they're just maybe ghost investigators, or you know, so they're sort of in and out. You know, it's sort of a loose type of thing. You know, I do have an assistant who helps me every time we go out, but sometimes she may not be able to make it. So you know, I could call somebody else. So it's really sort of a loosely based group.
So you all hear that, okay? If you want to help Reyes out investigating some of these, you need to check out his Facebook page.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, and I always put it on. Say, for instance, if I'm going out to Kalinga, I'll say, going to be heading out to Kalinga
Sure.
this weekend. Anybody who'd like to come, you know, I
Sure.
am me, and you know, love to have you. So far, I haven't had any takers, but
Well,
You know-
maybe you will now.
I hope so. I hope so.
So I want to know, because I'm sure you've heard tons of urban. See, I can't even say it like that.
I know this is
Urban
really going to
legends.
be a trial for Krista.
I don't know why I can't say urban legends. Okay, but what's one of your favorites?
Actually, it's the La Llorona. I
Okay.
really think that, and the reason why is because when I was a young man, back in the day when there wasn't cable and there wasn't internet, what we would do is we would sit around and listen to our grandmother and my mother tell us stories. And one of the prominent stories was one of an incident where she actually heard La Llorona. It was an evening where our uncle, who lived with us at the time, was out and about, and he was told not to go, right? So it was one of those things that you hear about when you do something that's not right, something bad will always happen to you. That's the basis of urban legends, right? You know,
Right.
they're
Yeah,
cautionary
absolutely.
tales. So anyway, he was out doing what he wasn't supposed to be doing, and in the meantime, at home, taking care of the kids, was my mother. She was a young lady at the time, and that evening they heard something, you know, that was sort of a blood-curdling cry that started, she said, very, very far away, and then it got closer and closer, and as it came closer, it seemed like it was right outside the front door, and then it passed. As it was right outside the front door, my grandfather came out, and he had a shotgun. He said, you know, in Spanish, which I won't even attempt to try to say because my Spanish is horrible. However, he said, "Get away from our door," you know, you, and then he said a couple of Spanish expletives, and then it disappeared. Well, not more than a minute or two later, a banging came on the door. Just, help, let me in, let me in. And of course, he got the shotgun again and said, "Get away from the door." Well, this time was my uncle. He was running because on his way back from carousing, he ran into some strange things. One was a figure of a woman sitting by the side of the road, and he said that as he walked up to the figure, he thought perhaps there was something wrong, and she looked up at him, and he said she had the face of a horse.
Oh.
And of course, at that point, the hairs on the back of his neck just stood up, and he took off running. I'm not sure how long, how far, but you know, he got there, and of course, our grandfather let him in. Actually, it would have been my great-grandfather, I think, at the time. Yeah, because in those days, you know, there were things that you just couldn't account for as easily as you could scientifically now, you know. So who knows, maybe nowadays we would say, well, that was just an ambulance, you know, coincided with, you know, our uncle seeing something strange. Maybe it was somebody who had a mutation, who knows. So, you know, it's an easier thing nowadays because we know more.
Exactly.
Right,
But,
right.
back in the day, those are things that urban legends are made of.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But were there any stories that you were really kind of scared of? I mean, besides La Llorona?
Yeah, you know, my mother would tell me about this house that she lived in Biola, and she said that it was an old gambling house, and of course, back in those days, they couldn't afford to purchase, you know, really nice homes, so it was an older home that, you know, was used as a gambling place, and she said that they would turn the light off, and they would always hear like people walking up and down the steps, voices. You know, so it would scare her, and of course, you know, she would not want to get out of bed. She would stay in bed, as we're all when we're young. You know, the safest place to be is the bed.
Yeah.
I used to
Under the
pull
covers.
the covers over my head.
Because it's a magical barrier that nothing can penetrate.
I would not allow a pinky to extend past the cover because I knew it would be taken away.
I know, personally, I would leave a little air hole.
Oh yeah, you
Just
gotta
a
have
little
that.
tiny air hole.
Yeah, gotta have that air hole, or else, you know.
Oh,
you
mine was
perish.
under the bed. It was like, there was always something under the bed.
Well, the under the bed and the in the closet is
Yeah.
another of those
Yeah.
things
Oh,
where you
yeah.
just constantly look, and it's like, okay, got to close that door. So you close the door, get back into bed, and you look up, and the door's open. Okay, time to call mom.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
But those would scare me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of La Llorona, I know you've done quite a bit of your research. We've done quite a bit of research. I know, and I was surprised. I was really surprised that it went back almost 500 years. I mean,
This is old.
It is very old, very old. I was surprised. It goes back to the Greek era. You know, all the stories they're not alike, but they're very, very, very similar. So.
Sure.
I mean, this legend has been urban legend has been going on and on and on, starting with Medea from the Greek era. I was amazed. I was fascinated.
Yeah, and it is quite fascinating, you know. And you think about it culturally, it's something that I think each society sort of acquires. And again, like I said, it's sort of a cautionary tale because you want to sort of keep your kids in line, so you tell them don't go near a body of water because you're going to get taken off. I mean, it's easier for a child to understand that than if they are told, well, you know, you might get caught by the riptides and it might take you into, you know, and submerge you. So they're like, well, no, that's no big deal.
It gives them a reason to fear. Because
Exactly.
fear has a purpose.
Absolutely.
You know,
Right.
so yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
it does.
And with that too, I mean, we talked about children misbehaving and parents telling them that La Llorona was going to get them and that kind of thing.
Right. Oh,
But
yeah.
also that people, even adults who hear the cries of La Llorona, are marked for death, similar to the Irish Banshee legend.
The Banshees.
Yeah, legend,
absolutely.
which was fascinating. And again, you know, I found a couple of movie clips. One dated back to 1933.
Really?
I actually saw the movie. It was like an hour and 9 minutes. The audio was a little bit iffy, all in Spanish, but and I don't have that one, but I do have another one here. And I think we're going to play, let's see, The Cry. It was a 2007 independent film directed by Bernadine Santisteban and co-written with Monique Salazar, titled The Cry. Ms. Santisteban undertook a 5-year research project on the Weeping Woman, and I have to say her journey is quite remarkable. I was impressed. I was really impressed. It's based on the legend of La Llorona, and we are going to see this. Actually, some believe this early myth evolved into the modern version of La Llorona, and we have a clip where we will see a curandera played by Miriam Colon talking about the history of the Weeping Woman.
La Llorona es una fuerza que lleva el dolor más profundo y la rabia más grande que haya existido en toda la eternidad.
La Llorona is a force. She carries the deepest pain and most vicious rage that ever existed.
En toda la eternidad.
In all eternity.
Medea de Grecia, Lilia de los judíos,
The Greek Medea, the Jewish Lilith.
la Malinche de los aztecas, Lamia también de los griegos,
The Aztec Malinche. Lamia, also Greek.
el viento que llora de los africanos,
The crying winds from Africa.
Raquel de Rama.
Rachel of Rama.
And that was actually one of 4 clips that the site offered, and it was the less creepy.
It looks like a great movie.
Yeah, it does. And there were actually mixed feelings. She won a couple of awards, but there were people that really hated it and people that really liked it. So,
Well,
you know.
that's a sign of a good movie, though.
Yeah, yeah. And it's out on
It's true.
DVD. I think Monterey Media, I think, distributes it. But I'm going to get it. It looked interesting. But
And it's a Spanish film. correct?
yes.
Or,
Well,
made
it's
in
kind of half and half.
I see.
Kinda
Because I did
Spanish
hear
film.
some English in there.
Yeah.
And, okay.
Yeah.
And what year did it come out?
2007.
2007.
Yeah, and she had done this 5-year research. I mean, she really went all out. I was really impressed with what the research she did. So yeah, it's really
So
impressive.
I want to know what you found locally with
Excellent.
this legend.
Yeah. I actually did a interview with the gentleman. What I did is I put out sort of a call on Craigslist for anybody who might have heard the White Lady, because most of the people I've been talking to, I went out to Sanger because I understand that there has been some sighting of her on Snake Road, Channel Road.
Okay.
And so
Correct.
I went
Been out
down there,
there.
took some pictures. I didn't go at night. The reason why is because it was recommended to me that's probably not a good idea, because the people that live there don't enjoy people just sort of going out there and hanging around trying to find the lady in white. So I thought, okay, I'll go during the day. During the day, it's probably more acceptable, you know. And so like I said, I took some pictures and I just sort of got a feel for it. It is a little creepy. I didn't see any white ladies. Obviously, it's not something you would see unless it's at night. However, there are some more things out there that I have heard, and that is that if you go at night, you can hear talking in the brush, and I can definitely see how that might happen. But then again, that might be explained by maybe voice carrying from.
Well, the river's
town.
right there.
The river's right
and
there.
it's
Right.
It's very the sound does carry over the water.
Yeah, and there's a lot of animals that can sound like human voices if you're out in the dark and you can't see and you're already kind of hyped up and tense.
Sure.
So, you know, but yeah.
However, getting back to that interview with this gentleman, he said that he'd spent a lot of time out there riding his dirt bikes, and just basically he sort of grew up in the area. He's from Reedley, but you know he used to go up and down the river all the time. So anyway, his experience was that he actually would go out there and he would hear things, see things, hear the crying, and in his opinion, he thought it was a demon. Because one time he went out there and he saw red eyes, just, you know, sort of in the dark. I mean, that, again, that could be anything. That could be an animal, you know. But he said that it affected him. It affected him greatly. And as a matter of fact, he felt that it attached and went back with him to his home. And he had experienced all sorts of very unexplainable things, such as knocking at the door, open the door, and nobody there. He would go into these sort of zones, you know, where he couldn't explain where he'd been. His friends would tell him that he was acting weird. So anyway, he had an exorcism.
Yeah.
And
And locally, people that you talk to, you know, family, friends, and
yes.
I mean, there's a wide belief in La Llorona.
Absolutely.
Today, I mean, how does it come across today? Are parents, modern parents, still telling their children about La Llorona?
That's a good question. And I went on the internet and I was just trying to find, you know, is anybody talking about it? And surprisingly, a lot of on Facebook and the like, I found people that are maybe in their early 20s, they're saying that their parents told them about La Llorona.
And they believe it.
Yeah, and they believe it.
Oh,
so
wow.
it goes on today, you know.
okay.
Maybe there's less and less people that believe it, but it's still passed on in some way. And I have a feeling that it will still get passed on.
Yeah.
It's just that ingrained in the culture.
Right. So for everybody, I want you to know that La Llorona is alive and well.
Yes.
And she's about 500 years old and crosses all cultures, ethnicities.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you better watch out and behave your parents. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. La Llorona will get you.
Yes, you will. All right, so let's move on to another local, somewhat local,
Oh, yeah, he's local.
tall
Yeah,
tale.
absolutely local.
See how I
Yeah.
said tall tale instead of urban?
Beautiful, and
legend?
that actually fits. It really does. Because if you think about it, because urban legend is actually more of a modern term,
Yeah.
and so we're talking 1850s, right? So that would have been a legend that might have been more fit to a tall tale.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, and I'm talking about Joaquin Murrieta Carrillo. He was born in 1829 and died July 25th, 1853. Also called the Mexican Robin Hood or the Robin Hood of El Dorado. He was a famous figure in California during the California gold rush of the 1850s. Depending on your point of view, he was considered either an infamous bandit or a Mexican patriot. Controversy surrounds the figure of Joaquin Murrieta, who he was, what he did, and the many of his life's events. So, Reyes, can we ever know the truth behind his exploits?
I really think that we won't. I just think that, because it's just, there's way too many. It's just like you've got too many strings to grab and they're just going over in different directions. But, you know, if you would think about it in this way, you know, pick the legends of him that you like the best and then create your own idea. I tend to like the one where he is this Mexican national, comes from Sonora, and he finds that there is gold so he and his wife Rosita and their brother-in-law, I believe his name escapes me at the moment, but they moved to Hangtown, which is around
Right,
Placerville.
right,
Okay.
right.
And they set up a mine, and they're rather successful. Now, because of the times, some of the Anglos around there didn't like that. So what they decided to do was to go and sort of harass him a little bit and maybe try to push him out of his mine. Well, what then ends up happening is that he's not there at the time that supposedly these 31 Anglos come, and they end up going a little further than that, and they end up raping and killing Rosita. And also, I believe they killed his brother-in-law as well. So when he gets back, they capture him, and they actually whip him. They tie him to a post, and they whip him, and then they leave him alive, and that was their mistake.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So,
And that's where the legend was born.
and that's where the legend is born.
Yeah.
Now, there is a little bit of a sidestep to that, okay? Rosita's brother-in-law, his name was Claudio Feliz.
Feliz,
Now, known as one of the more bloodiest gang members, I guess you could call him, of his day. And he's going around and he's doing stuff like he's attacking these rich, ranch owners. And
Pretty much anybody.
anybody.
Anybody's alone on the road. Yeah.
Absolutely. His motto is leave no one left alive, so
Right.
that no one could
Right.
tell
Right.
who he was, what he looked like.
Wow.
So anyway, so Claudio, goes on the spree, and he's joined by his brother. Okay, his brother's name is Reyes, and that's why it became very familiar to me because that's my name. Anyway, Reyes Feliz and Claudio, these two brothers, and they're going around. Well, what ends up happening is they go a little bit too far, and Claudio kills a fellow Hispanic rancher. And so now all of a sudden where he was protected by people that, knew of him, but they wouldn't, give him up. Now they said, fine, take him. He was shot to pieces.
Yeah.
So that left Reyes Feliz open to call Joaquin. And now at this point, he comes over to join. Now I believe this is after what we talked about, after he's been horsewhipped and
Right,
the like.
right.
And he joins, and they end up, doing a little bit of their own
And
thing.
it still was a pretty bloody gang.
And
I
it was
they
still a
were,
very bloody
And
gang.
in fact, there was one question in the research I did as well that they really couldn't find any facts about his giving to robbing from the rich and giving to the poor.
Yeah.
There really, that truly is an urban legend
That
because there
is.
really was no actual facts or accounts of that happening. So
there was a lot of robbing,
but not a lot of
necessarily
giving, not a lot,
giving.
and a lot of spending, but not a lot of giving.
And also, a lot of the people that he robbed were not rich Anglos. They were not. He was not stealing gold from them. He was stealing gold from some of the Chinese railroad workers.
Right.
And he killed about 15 of them. So there's some things going on there. Maybe he wasn't such a great guy, but there's also some talk is the reason that they couldn't catch him for a while is because his compatriots would not give him up.
Right.
And that's where
There was a lot of loyalty.
there was a lot of loyalty. And again, he's he's making an impact on Anglo society.
Right.
And so they're gonna sort of protect him a little bit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the Anglos got mad. They
yeah.
got
They
mad.
did. The
They got
governor
mad.
said, enough of that.
Enough of that. So, and I think we have a picture of where he was eventually captured, I think photo 4. So tell us about his capture.
Oh, okay. Well, eventually the governor hired these ex-Texas Rangers, and he made them California Rangers. These California Rangers chased him down. They ended up chasing him down to Rio Grande, which is just a little bit, about 14 miles, and I believe it's sort of, it's
Cantua
southeast.
Creek?
Cantua Creek,
Yeah.
that's the other name for it. Cantua Creek was their hideout.
Yeah.
And eventually, Captain Harry Love cornered them there. Now, it was really difficult because they had sort of disbanded a little bit. It was a large band, and they were called the Joaquins band as well because there was more than one Joaquin. There was a few Joaquins. So a lot of these reports of him doing what he did may not have actually been him. It's called the Joaquin theory. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
And so it may have been some of the other Joaquins, but he's getting credit for it.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, Captain Harry Love finally did capture him, and there was a shootout. Captain Love shot him, and he still took off, he bolted, and for a while, you know, there was a chase. But eventually, they did get him, and he succumbed to his, you know, the shots he took. I think he took several shots, and eventually they grabbed him, and he died.
Wow.
But now, Captain Love has to figure, okay, how am I going to prove? I'm not going to carry this carcass all over, you know, California. So he decided the best thing to do was to decapitate him and to show that as proof that Joaquin Murrieta was dead.
Yeah, and they went around the country displaying this this head
Right.
and the finger of Three-Finger Jack, or the hand.
His accomplice,
Yeah.
yes, Three-Finger Jack.
A head in the jar.
There's a head and there's a hand, and we even have a picture of the headlines in the newspaper. If we could show photo 6 real quick. There we go. So, you know, for $1, you can go see a severed head, you know? One of the most notorious bandits.
What a deal.
Make back some of the money they spent on the, yeah.
Well, what's interesting is that, no, I started to give, okay, on any urban legend, you could always ask, well, wait a second, okay, so they just carry this huge, because they said he put it in a jar of bourbon, and I'm trying to find a jar of bourbon large enough to put a head. They're really...
Yeah, it's a big jar of bourbon.
That's a big jar. So I'm like, okay, they drink
A lot
a lot
of
those
bourbon.
days. Yeah, a lot of bourbon. But here's what made more sense to me. When they did decapitate Joaquin Murrieta, and they also decapitated Three-Finger Jack, because they wanted to
didn't
prove
know
that
that.
as well.
I
Yes, they
didn't know
took both heads. And they said, well, let's also take his hand, because we know that once they see the 3 fingers, they're going to know, okay, you know, it's almost like more proof.
Yeah.
So he detached 2 of his riders to take both heads and a hand to Fort Miller and have them put it in a jar there. That made more sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I remember you sent me something about that.
I
And-
just ran across it doing some research on Fort Miller, Camp Barber.
Yes,
So,
yes. That was excellent.
Oh.
Because it sort of confirmed it, you
Yeah,
know, in a way.
yeah.
Because I mean, here's Fort Miller now, and it's veritably empty. There's really nobody protecting the fort.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
they had you know, some, you know, maybe a couple of army men there, but now most people were siding with the South rather than the North.
Right.
That were, you know, they're all right. So now we've got these people not really caring about, you know, being having allegiance to the North. Anyway, these 2 men show up, and they've got a couple of heads and a hand, and so they get the local guy, you know, local mortuarian guy, I guess, to put it in a jar of alcohol, and that makes more sense.
Yes,
However,
it does.
what happened was on the way in, Three-Finger Jack's head decayed so badly that it wouldn't have done any good. So they buried it, and they put the hand in a jar instead.
yeah.
So that's what makes more sense to me.
So, I think throughout, I mean, it's unfortunate that Murrieta the legend has such a bad beginning. I mean, the reason for him going on this violent spree was because of his wife. You know, and I tend to believe that, like you, I tend to believe that story as well. That makes more sense to me.
Right.
You know, but, you know, I think for many he's regarded as a hero. And I think that he represented that against this people that were killing Mexicans in general, just for the principle, you know.
Right.
So I think that we have to look at that too, and I think he deserves his place in history. He even though some of the exploits weren't true, I think he deserves his place in history.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I do got to say though, because our viewers can't see this, but Reyes actually brought something. I haven't been allowed to see this yet.
I received a mysterious visitor one night.
Okay.
And he said he had something for me.
Oh.
And he told me to meet him at the Van Ness Arch late at night. And there I saw something that I thought I'd never seen. What's interesting about that, though, is that it sort of tells you, okay, yeah, this thing about him putting it in a bottle of bourbon. If you can see the size of that,
Yeah.
there's,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
so that sort of shoots down that theory.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I like the one where he ends up at Fort Miller.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because think about it. All right, so I went online, and Kentucky Creek is about 63 miles by car from Kentucky Creek to Fort Miller, where Millerton is now.
Okay.
So I was thinking, okay, by horse, I went on a site and they equated that to possibly 2 days ride.
Okay.
So think about having a severed head
Right.
for 2
Ooh,
days.
the smell,
hot
the
sun.
flies,
In the hot sun.
the
California
flies,
sun.
the sun.
Absolutely.
Ooh,
And
the
there's no roads,
smell.
not the roads that we see now, back in 1853. So, very interesting.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, it does make a lot more sense that good old Three-Finger Jack's head just decayed and just sort of started falling apart, you know.
Right.
And I would hate to be one of those two guys.
Yeah. Well, and
about the smell.
you know, Joaquin is a local folk hero,
Yes,
and
he is.
and I think all of us respect the fact of what he lived, what he stood for.
Sure.
Maybe not the way he did it.
Yeah. However, there is one more thing about him, if I may. And I found that there is actually some people that believe that his ghost still rides today in the gold mine fields of Hangtown.
Really?
And he's searching for his head.
Oh, that's a good story.
It's a very good story. Someone ready to write a book or maybe a movie. That would be perfect.
All right, we're
I'd
gonna
like to see it.
Yeah, we're gonna switch now. We're gonna quit talking about severed heads, and we're going underground. Okay. All right. Every big city has them, from Los Angeles to San Francisco to Seattle, and Fresno is no exception. The underground tunnels, Fresno's old-timers remember and have long talked about them, relating scenes they remember from their childhood, stories such as passing through hidden entrances to a dark basement before descending into a lit tunnel with an arched roof and enough space for 2 people to walk side by side. There were women in colorful satin dresses off to the side, gambling in opium dens, all home to people and activities that couldn't be mentioned up above. For years, it was the city's best kept secret, and still is today, having descended into the realm of urban legends in Fresno's history. You can see by some of the pictures that these pictures are actual pictures taken by my co-host, who was with some people and back in 2010 called The Messengers with Jackie Harris. And these are actual pictures because she has been there.
Yes, I have.
So they are real. They are
Yes,
real.
I
Okay.
have absolutely no doubt. I've been in them and I've seen them. I've taken pictures and video. And
So before we start discussions, I want to show a documentary trailer. It was written, directed, and produced by former Fresnan Amber Rose Kandarian, and she has granted us permission to share it with our viewers. Can we cue up video clip 2 for me, please?
When I was younger, I used to come up to Fresno every winter and help out my uncle at Central Fish Company. And I was always very curious to see what Chinatown was, and I think the older I got, I was put in a position where I have to go and look out and try to find the historical tunnels and start digging. If you ask a lot of property owners in the past especially, they would tell you straight to your face that tunnels don't exist in Chinatown when they have tunnels underneath them. You have story about tunnels?
No, I don't know about the story.
Then those people pass away, new tenants move in, and we realize that tunnels are all throughout that building. Stairs that, so they have access to, from the street to down to the tunnels. There's another access to upstairs. This gives easy access to the basements and to the tunnels so people can exit. When police would do raids in Chinatown, they would come down underneath the tunnels, and a lot of stories of how difficult it is to catch the people in Chinatown because of the tunnels. They would just scatter all over the place. 'Cause we're under the street right now. Yeah, I know there's a lot of alcohol, prostitution, opium, and gambling, and
it's not all about them making the railroad and being a model citizen. This was bad Japanese, Chinese history.
The door is closed right now. This
They're trying to get into the basement, but he has it blocked off with a bunch of with shoe boxes. So we're gonna get those moved out and crawl under the basement. And well, that's like opening up a safe that hasn't been opened for so long. And these are like hidden treasures. There's a lot of excitement built into what that can bring. It's like, you know, all these basements and all these places in here, and where these boards are boarded up and where this board is, and in between there. That's some Chinese writing up there. See, if you see something like this has got a big line in it. A lot of times that means that something used to be behind there. Like this is like the white brick right here. And then when we get to this side, it turns red. And then they have the lines that would show you. A lot of these things just haven't been touched for so long. For 100 years, they've just been sitting there. And it's just about time for us to really see what they were doing down there. And all these priceless, you know, artifacts is something that's worth it. Actually, you know what? That's Japanese. That's not even Chinese. You know, there's a lot of these basements down here was they call them like brothels and prostitution dens, and a lot of prostitutes used to sleep down here. They were actually kidnapped from China as mail order brides and were never allowed to escape. A lot of people used to get lost in the tunnels and never be seen again. That's why people say, I think we're going to walk by the alley where people can hear lost souls still screaming for help. One time we brought like a medium person who could kind of hear voices or see the dead, and he walked past that building without knowing any history behind it. And well, the lady that I was with, she said that she could hear, you know, voices trapped down there. They need to be released. A lot of these prostitutes, you know, they were tricked into coming into Fresno, sort of like a mail order bride type of thing from China. They'd get to Fresno and they'd have their whole life stripped from them. If they tried to leave Chinatown or the tunnels, basically they lived here 24 hours a day, didn't really see the day of light. If they did, they were killed. Well, this looks like a Chinese association that we saw some gambling papers in here. I wouldn't doubt if this whole place was like kind of a gambling hall. Yeah, but this looks like, you know, a secret entrance. I know a lot of these places in Chinatown had basements like this. They used to all connect.
This is it. This is our history. My dad, he never told me. I went to church every week right across the street. I bought snow cones right down the street every week. I had no idea that these were down here throughout my whole childhood. They didn't say anything. They didn't tell me anything about the tunnels. There was no history. It was just straight. They wanted it just not to be.
The authorities keep telling us there's no such thing as the tunnels. I don't get it. This was done 4 years ago. You've been down there. You know, they've got PG&E, and not PG, there were high-speed rail people doing diggings to try to find them, because so they want to put their, well, they don't really want to find them,
Right.
but they want to put their high-speed rail through them.
And that was as recent as October of last year.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, we got another clip, and which you were personally involved in, and we're going to show that too. So, because I mean, Jackie Harris and her team, including Krista, were down there, and we're going to see that. Krista did pick up, as being as sensitive as she is, she did pick up some paranormal activity, and then she's going to show us a map that she drew, approximate map about where they were and what they saw. So, if we could show that real quick, we could show that third video clip.
You know, in the area that we were in, it was so dusty. That's why you'll see myself and the rest of the team were all wearing face masks. It was extremely dusty, but we're talking dirt floors, brick walls, like what you saw in the first video. There's these brick walls everywhere, but at the same time, you see these areas where the brick is different. It's like it goes from red brick to all of a sudden there's a perfect door-shaped area that's now covered with new concrete brick.
And I have an answer for that.
Good. I mean, you know, during the investigation, we assumed it was because of, obviously, it was done later. It wasn't done at the same time.
Correct.
It was done later. So,
Correct, and you're right.
And tunnels were
Right.
blocked off.
Right. Well, too, after a while, between the brick buildings they were wood buildings originally.
Right.
Then the brick buildings came in 1905 to 1920, but the floors were all dirt.
Yes.
And then the brick buildings, after so much time, the brick, I guess the mortar starts to sugar, they call it, and so it starts to crumble, and the buildings were sinking. So they went in and shored up by pouring concrete, and bracing up the walls. But some of the brick, the original brick is still there.
Yep,
You know,
original. And you can definitely tell where they went over and sealed off these
Right,
tunnels because
right.
it's a very clear line.
I think this is the part where you're coming up and we're getting ready.
Okay.
You're getting ready to talk. Well, it's towards the end,
Okay.
but
Well, but yeah.
yeah, and unfortunately the lighting wasn't all that good, but you can definitely see. you
Yeah.
know.
We were a team on a budget.
Yeah.
We didn't have the fancy high def videos. We used what we had, but it was. But you know, in the pictures that were shown earlier, when we first started talking about this, those were all photos that were taken by mostly by myself during our investigation. And there are, like that stairs that you just saw in the video there are stairs that go to nowhere.
Yeah, yeah. And concealed archways.
Yep,
where
concealed
You know there
archways.
was a door there. You absolutely
Absolutely.
know there, because you found the opposite end on the other side of the street.
Yes, we did.
So,
Yes, we
you
did.
know, yeah.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to gain access to two quote unquote basements that were across the street from each other. And we were able to tell that, you know, there's a tunnel that only goes in about 3 feet and then it's bricked up. And then on the other side of the street, in the other basement, there's a tunnel that's facing the opposite one that only goes in about 3 feet.
Feeling a lot of
Here you go.
busyness, a lot of noise down here. I just get the sense that there was, at one point, a lot of people in this space. I'm getting all ages, I'm getting kids, I'm getting women, I'm getting men. I don't think anybody's here now with us. I think this is a residual energy that I'm feeling, just something that's kind of replaying itself. But I get the distinct feeling of hiding. They were hiding down here for some reason from someone. They didn't want to be found. And it was almost as if these were temporary living quarters, is kind of what I'm feeling, like they were actually living in this area for days, weeks, maybe even months at a time, as a way to hide. That's about it right now. And again, I don't get any actual spirits in this room with us. I feel that they're hiding in the back. They're not ready to come up and talk to us yet. So hopefully they'll be more willing later.
Yeah, I believe
long I
you.
looked.
I believe. But Reyes, you hit a brick wall virtually. I mean, literally.
At the beginning, I did.
Yeah.
And if I found that if you go through the city, you're going to get that same old talking point.
Yep.
They're just basements that are connected. You know, some people did have some gambling tables down there, but they were just for the people that lived there at the time. There was no there was no thought of a society of people that went down there to hide from the police or anything of that nature. Now, I'm trying to wonder why that is. Do you have any theories on why that is?
I personally do, yeah. The history is steeped in scandal. I mean, we're talking child brides that were illegally brought over, were forced into marriage, forced into prostitution,
Right.
Illegal gambling, illegal drinking, because this was all happened during Prohibition as well.
And drugs.
And illegal drugs. There's talk of opium dens being down there. So
Right.
it's all very illicit activity. And why would you want your people known for that?
Right.
You know, why would you want your future generations of kids knowing that, yeah, you know, they come from a line of people that did all this illegal stuff underground?
This is true.
That's my own personal opinion.
And then I heard one rumor too where there was actually a tunnel that went to the white side of town,
I'm sure
and
there is. Yeah.
that people, the prominent men, citizens, would use that tunnel to get into Chinatown to be able to do whatever they wanted to do. You know.
So do you think that's why, like, the word that you get from the city? Now, I can understand, like, some of the families, you know, not wanting to promote that to the next
Right.
generation. But why the city stonewalls you? Is it because they don't want you to dig further on that. Also, I thought perhaps it might also be because they don't want anybody sort of going on their own investigations without
Absolutely.
And that's
getting
definitely a
permission,
risk. That
which
sure
will
is definitely a
probably
risk.
happen.
Yeah. But I think the reason they tell people that is because, number one, they don't want people down there just going on their own.
Plus, a lot of those
And I think
buildings
doesn't
are condemned.
Chinatown have their own city council, councilman
Yes, they do.
board? So, and I think a lot of that is from them. They want to keep whatever the illicit activities that happen. I think they want to keep that buried.
Yes. Sure.
Buried.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that comes from them. I think I know a lot of the business owners are prohibited from talking about them at all,
Really?
period, and can get into trouble.
I spent a day down there one Sunday about 2 weeks ago, and I just went through and I talked to any store owner or anybody who was working there that I could. I found that they were pretty free about their talk about the basements. As a matter of fact, I was pointed to one of the, and I'm not going to mention the name of the,
No, don't.
but there was a corner establishment that has access to those basements. He said, yeah, go on in and talk to him. He'll let you go down there. I didn't do it because he was busy, and the one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to, interfere with somebody's business while, they're trying to make a buck. But, there's other ways. So.
But that's an important clue because, you can go down and see the basement, but because the tunnel is blocked off.
Yes, that's probably true.
Yeah.
So, go ahead and go down. You'll see that it's just a basement.
Right.
Yeah, okay. But they're forgetting, that basement connected to a tunnel or to another basement, which led to a tunnel
Sure.
at one point. And we're talking late 1800s, early 1900s, all the
Absolutely.
way up until about 1950. And then everything kind of got shut down. Everything, all the activities down there, people were living down there. It all got shut down.
Yeah.
So, I guess maybe that's the time they started to clean things up or whatever. But even the police wouldn't go in there. I mean, the slogan was, whatever happened in Chinatown stayed in Chinatown.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where that started. I thought Las Vegas was the first one to do that. Very quickly, if you don't mind, I just wanted, as far as the paranormal side of downtown Chinatown, you said that you did feel that there was
Absolutely. Activity,
okay.
absolutely. And I think that's almost to be expected with the history that's down there. When we went down there, we don't have the film clip, but there was a point that we were doing like a EVP session, and all of a sudden, like, this energy kind of went through, and even the non-sensitive people that were in my group all reacted the same way.
Really?
I was actually sitting off to the side because I was taking the pictures.
Sure.
And they were doing the EVP session, and all of them literally just like jumped back. I mean, it was such a strong presence. So absolutely, I believe that there's activity.
Can we, we're going to go on to take a look at a map that Krista kind of drew up. It's an approximate map, and she's going to describe for us exactly where she was and where she believes the tunnels that are now boarded up, where they were located.
Okay, everyone. So this is a map that I drew when I did my investigation in Chinatown. First thing, this is absolutely not to scale. This was, it was a huge area. We didn't have tape measures long enough to do it, so I consider myself to be a pretty decent mapper, or at least at the time. So I do believe it's an accurate representation of the dimensions. But let me go ahead and kind of tell you a little bit about this. So this room 1 right here, kind of over here on the staircase, this is where we came in. This is where we got access to an unnamed store. You see that nice black spot? That's where I had written the store name down. And this first room was really just a basement for them. They used it for storage, nothing unusual. Same with the 2 rooms immediately beneath it, what I labeled as room 2 and room 3. Again, just storage. And there's some wooden walls separating it. Now you will see a couple other staircases that I have on here. This one I'm pointing at immediately here, and then in room number 1 up here, both of those staircases went to nowhere. They were sealed off. At some point, I can only assume that there was access above, otherwise why would they be there? This little room way off over here to the side, that was another ladder that actually did go up to the street level, so there was street access. Currently, there's also some electrical equipment in there that it's currently being used for. Okay, so now to get to the exciting stuff, I'm going to back up. So over here, this little doorway right here is actually where there was this gorgeous, extremely heavy wooden doors with locks that looked like it came out of the Middle Ages. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. The door looked ancient. And I'd even had a peephole in it so that you could look to see who was coming and going. And we're talking like those big heavy locks that you slide over. It was really amazing. So you go through that door and immediately you're in this small tunnel here. As you go down, you come into this massive, massive room. Dirt floors, brick walls. For the most part, it's red brick. However, you'll see down at the bottom, sorry, not used to working the green screen here, get my directions straight. All of these little outlets that are down here, including some in the previous room, they're all bricked off. The brick is obviously newer than the original brick. Some of these areas even go in about 3 feet before the bricking starts. So this is what we believe to be the actual tunnels in Chinatown. So these are basements, that's what they are, they're basements. But it's these areas down here that go somewhere. I mean, why else would you build a 3-foot alcove? I mean, there's just absolutely no logical reason for that. You know, why would you build a space that's only like 3 feet deep and then brick it off? Obviously, it went to somewhere. Now, the really interesting part is we also gained access to the building across the street. This is actually the street view down here. And we gained access to the building across the street and went down into their basement, and they had tunnels that lined up with these. So they had these same 3-foot deep alcoves that were bricked off with newer concrete brick rather than the old red brick. And if you line them up on a map, they match. They absolutely match. So just a few other things in here. These top 2 rooms, room 5 and room 4, again, we're talking dirt floors, the old brick walls. There's archways that now go nowhere because it's all bricked off. There was also a fire door, an extremely heavy-duty fire door that was actually on a pulley system. Why would you have that unless you were trying to keep somebody out or trying to keep somebody in, depending. That being said, let me kind of get out of the way here. Over here, there is actually a chute that went up to the surface level. It was actually like a ramp, possibly for deliveries, something along those lines right here. Another staircase up in this corner that went to nowhere. Again, completely sealed off. So there's, throughout this entire space, there's all these areas that go to nowhere. It's a bit like the Winchester Mystery House, except I don't think it was built specifically to go to nowhere. It obviously at some point went somewhere, and to the tunnels is the only logical explanation. Now, unfortunately, even though we did gain access to this area, all the possible tunnel entrances, every single one of them was bricked off. Every single one. So there's no way to get in. Go ahead, Jackie.
Krista, in your opinion, though, being down there, firsthand knowledge, seeing all these bricked up entrances, ones that go even under the streets, and I think, is it fair to say that these kind of loop around the whole of Chinatown, China Alley?
I would absolutely say so. Yeah. I was in 2 different areas, 2 different basements, different sides of the streets, and without a doubt in my mind, I don't believe by any means it was confined to these 2 locations. The video from the documentary that we showed earlier, that showed a basement that I didn't go in. So that right there is another 3rd one. Right. Reyes mentioned that he was given the ability to go down into a basement. That one I didn't go in. I know which door he's talking about, and we didn't get into that one. So that's at least 4.
Yeah.
That's at least 4 confirmed basements with, the supposed tunnel access. Yeah. So yeah, why would it be confined just to those 4? I honestly believe it's under that entire portion of the city. Go ahead, Reyes.
I'm sorry. I spoke to somebody who works across the street from one of the buildings. This might be the building you're talking about. And she said that she went in one day. I guess the door was open. I guess. Anyway, she went in and she was with some friends, and they actually said that they could actually see, because the floors were broken. There was a empty space where the floor should be, which is why they probably shouldn't have been in there. But anyway, she said she could look down and she could see old gaming tables and stuff. Yeah. So she could actually look down into the basement from the main floor. Is that possible?
I could see how it could be. These buildings are old.
Yeah, they're condemned.
Yeah, a lot of them are condemned. I could definitely see how that's possible, because if the floors are that old,
Yeah.
because you got to remember too, in the time that these were built, they didn't have subfloors, you know.
It was all dirt.
It was all just dirt.
Right,
So yeah, absolutely, I think that would be possible.
Thank you so much, Krista.
You're welcome.
You know, it's so nice to be able to have somebody talk to somebody who's actually been down there.
Yeah.
And actually now we can air it, and now we can put it on the show. We can let other people know,
Yeah.
they are there, and they are very real.
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt in my mind.
Yeah, and so as we can tell by the maps Krista just showed us, you know, I firmly believe that, like you, that there are definitely tunnels that have been walled up, concrete, whatever has been diverted, and I think that they're doing the digging now for the high yield. I think they're just digging in the wrong place. They're not digging. They're not digging the right place to find the tunnels because they don't. But maybe they don't want it. Like you said, they don't want to find them.
Yeah.
But I have one last question. I've heard this referred to as Japantown or Chinatown. Do you have any indication what the real name or true name is?
You know, in my experience, it's always been Chinatown. I remember being a child and going to see my doctor who was down in Chinatown, weekly iron shots. I hated to go. But anyway, it was always, we're going to Chinatown, you know. I never really actually heard Japantown till I was a little bit older. But I would think that's, you know, maybe 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, you know. I'm not quite sure. But I have read where I think originally it was Japantown.
That's what I thought too.
That's what I've heard
And
as
I've
well.
seen some maps of all the
Yes.
businesses, and it was the map, surveyor's map with the city. It says Japantown. It
Yeah.
does not say Chinatown.
And they might even have had, you know, separated it into Japantown and Chinatown
That
as
could
well.
be. That could be.
I'm just theorizing here.
More research is needed, I guess.
Yeah, more research.
Absolutely. There's more work to be done.
Yeah.
Going out tomorrow.
Yes, yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're about out of time.
I think we're out of time.
Yeah, so real quick, some announcements. Casa, we always have stuff going on. Check us out, our website, casadelcurandero.com, or on Facebook. Jackie?
Yeah, you want to see what CCPI is up to and what we're doing next? We got some events coming up, and just check out the website, and I'll put it on the screen. I'm not going to say it.
And Reyes, how do people find you?
Go to my Facebook page. It's Your Urban Legends, and I'll be more than happy to welcome you. And I also have a blog spot page. It's Your Urban Legend.
Oh.
I don't know why, but it wouldn't let me put legend, so Your Urban Legend. So you can go to that as well. Just you know, see me on there, and I'll be posting a lot more stuff.
Good.
Wonderful.
A lot more adventures to take.
Well, thank you so much for coming
thank
out
you. I had a great
and
time.
being with us today. We really appreciate
I
it.
wish we had more
Thank you for
time.
having
I
me.
know.
I
We
wanted
might have
more
to have you back
time.
later.
Oh,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes, we
Yeah.
gotta have you
Absolutely.
back.
Yes, I could have a recurring role in this.
Well, yes.
You're Joaquin Murrieta guy.
Yeah, well, and if you come across some other legend that's just all of a sudden picking up steam and it's really interesting, let us know.
There's so
because-
much out
There
there.
really
Yes,
is.
because
There
we'll
really
bring
is.
you back. And
Sounds great. Yeah,
wonderful.
I'll definitely be back, and I will blow your minds with something.
All right, guys. Well, that about wraps it up for us. Keep your calendars for the last Wednesday of each month on the same channel and time. Keep that open for us. We hope that you've enjoyed our show, and will join us again next time when we talk about more paranormal topics with our special guests and give you the news about things that go bump in the night. If you have any questions or comments, please contact us. We're at paranormaljourneys1@gmail.com. We also have a Facebook page. We welcome any feedback, questions, anything you want to talk about, let us know. Again, a special thank you to Reyes Hernandez for joining us and sharing his journey. Want to see what he's investigating next? Go ahead and check out his Facebook page, which he's mentioned, his Blogspot page. And,
we'll put it on the screen
yeah,
too.
yeah, we'll get it all up here. So on behalf of Jackie and myself,
Take care, be safe.